Have you ever wondered how faith can provide protection in our lives? It's a question that sparks curiosity and invites thought, doesn't it? Faith, a concept so profound yet so personal, serves as a beacon in our lives, guiding us through the stormy seas of uncertainty and fear. It's our anchor, our shield, our comforter. Now imagine this faith encapsulated in a single passage, a passage that speaks volumes about protection and assurance. That's what Psalm 91 is all about. Often referred to as the protection psalm, it offers a glimpse into the divine protection that faith can provide. But what does it really say? What are the deep, profound meanings behind each verse? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. So get ready to delve into the nuances of this incredible psalm. Join us on this journey as we break down Psalm 91 verse by verse, exploring its deep and profound meanings. Diving right in, Psalm 91 begins with, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." The imagery of this verse is both profound and comforting. Just imagine, if you will, dwelling in the shelter of the Most High. This isn't just any shelter, but the shelter of God Himself. It signifies a place of supreme safety, a refuge that is utterly impregnable. Nothing can harm us there. It's a place of complete trust, a fortress that stands unwavering against the storms of life. And what about resting in the shadow of the Almighty? A shadow is a cool, refreshing respite from the harshness of the sun. Similarly, God's shadow represents His soothing, calming presence in our lives. It's a place where we can find reprieve from the heat of our troubles and trials. It's a place where we can breathe, where we can rest, where we can find peace. But this verse isn't just about God's protection, it's about the comfort derived from dwelling in His presence. To dwell means to live or stay as a permanent resident. It's not a fleeting visit, but a committed, enduring relationship. When we choose to dwell with God, we're choosing to make Him our home, our address, our dwelling place. It's about an intimate relationship with God, a closeness that brings about an indescribable peace. God's protection isn't just physical, but emotional and spiritual too. He's our fortress against fear, against doubt, against insecurity. He's our refuge from the storms of life, the trials and tribulations that threaten to overwhelm us. When we dwell in His shelter, when we rest in His shadow, we're enveloped in His love, His peace, His comfort. We're under the umbrella of His grace, under the canopy of His mercy. Indeed, when we dwell with God, we find rest and protection. We find a fortress that can't be breached, a refuge that can't be shaken. We find a shadow that cools, that calms, that comforts. We find a home, a dwelling place, a sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, we find peace. We find rest. We find love. And most of all, we find God. Indeed, when we dwell with God, we find rest and protection. Moving on, verses 3 to 6 of Psalm 91 promise deliverance and protection from various forms of danger. Let's delve into these verses and uncover the profound messages they hold. These verses speak of the fowler's snare, a trap set to capture unsuspecting birds. This metaphor serves to illustrate the hidden dangers in our lives, those unexpected pitfalls and challenges that we often don't see coming. However, the psalm assures us that God will deliver us from these traps, providing a way out where it seems there is none. Next, we encounter the deadly pestilence, a clear representation of diseases and plagues. In the face of health crises, whether personal or global, these lines remind us that God is our ultimate healer. He shields us, and even when we walk through the deepest valleys of sickness, we can trust in His healing power. The terror of the night is mentioned next, symbolizing the fears and anxieties that creep into our minds in the quiet, dark hours. Yet, the psalm affirms that even in the face of our deepest fears, God is there to comfort and soothe us. His presence is a constant, even when our worries try to convince us otherwise. Lastly, we read of arrows that fly by day. These arrows can represent any direct attack, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, that seeks to harm us. Yet, the psalmist assures us that no matter what comes our way, we are under God's protection, and these attacks cannot destroy us. In all these circumstances, God's protection is not just about shielding us from harm. It's also about His promise to be with us, to guide us, and to give us the strength to endure. It's a promise that no matter what we face, we will not face it alone. These verses, laden with vivid imagery, are more than mere words. They are a powerful testament to God's unwavering love and protection for his children. They are a reminder that no matter what we face, God is our refuge and fortress, our ever-present help in times of trouble. The Lord's protection is all-encompassing, shielding us from every form of danger. Verses 7 to 13 of Psalm 91 continue to emphasize God's protection. As we delve deeper into this psalm, we find ourselves in a landscape of chaos and danger. Yet the psalmist remains unflinching. Why? Because he has faith in the promise of divine protection. 1,000 may fall at his side, 10,000 at his right hand, but harm will not come near him. He will only observe with his eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. Imagine standing in the midst of such turmoil, yet remaining untouched. It's not because of any physical shield or supernatural force field. It's simply because God has promised to keep us safe, and his word is unbreakable. Now let's take a moment to appreciate the gravity of this promise. In a world where we constantly find ourselves in the face of danger, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, these verses offer us profound comfort. The promise is not that we will never face danger, but that we will not be consumed by it. We will see it, we will recognize it, but it will not touch us. This divine intervention is not just an abstract concept. It's a tangible reality, with God commanding his angels to guard us in all our ways. They will lift us up in their hands so that we will not strike our foot against a stone. This metaphorically emphasizes that we won't even stumble in our journey through life, let alone face any major harm. Consider the promise of angelic protection. It's not just about protection from physical harm, but also about guidance and support in our spiritual journey. God's angels are sent to guard us, to guide us, and to carry us through the trials and tribulations of life. Meditate on this. Even when we encounter the fiercest of challenges, we won't trip or fall because we are under the care of God's angelic hosts. We will tread upon the lion and the cobra. We will trample the great lion and the serpent. This symbolizes overcoming the most intimidating dangers with God's protection. In the midst of chaos, we remain unscathed. Such is the extent of God's protection. Finally, verses 14 to 16 of Psalm 91 assure us of God's deliverance, honor, and salvation. This passage of Scripture is a beautiful testament to God's unwavering commitment to his children. It's filled to the brim with promises that instill comfort, courage, and hope. To understand these verses, let's break them down and look at each promise separately. Firstly, God promises to rescue and protect us. The condition? Simply setting our love on him. By choosing to love God, we invite his divine protection into our lives. It's an amazing exchange, our love for his protection. Secondly, God pledges to answer us when we call upon him. This is not a one-way conversation, but an active dialogue where our voices are heard and our prayers received. We are not shouting into the void, but speaking directly to a God who listens and responds. Thirdly, he promises to be with us in times of trouble. Life can be tough, but these words remind us that we do not face our battles alone. God is right there with us, guiding us through the storm. Moreover, he promises to honor us. In a world where honor is often tied to worldly achievements, it's refreshing to know that our value in God's eyes is inherent. It's not about what we do, but who we are, his beloved children. Another promise that stands out is the assurance of a long, satisfying life. In a world that often seems fleeting and unpredictable, this promise brings a sense of stability and peace. Finally, the psalm concludes with the ultimate promise, to show us his salvation. It's the grand finale of God's commitment to us, a promise that transcends this life and reaches into eternity. As we contemplate these incredible promises, let's remember the conditions: to love him, acknowledge his name, and call upon him. It's a small price to pay for such abundant blessings. God's promises are abundant and sure for those who love him and call upon his name. Having explored Psalm 91 verse by verse, we now understand its profound message. This psalm, in its entirety, is a testament to the divine protection and assurance of deliverance for those who place their trust in God. It begins by establishing God as our refuge and fortress, our reliable shield in times of trouble. As we move through the verses, we see promises of protection from deadly disease, terror of the night, and attacks during the day. It assures us that even amid chaos, we will remain unscathed. The psalm climaxes with God's pledge to rescue, protect, honor, and grant long life to those who love and know him. It's a beautiful blend of promises and faith, assuring us that no harm will befall us under God's watchful eyes. May we always dwell in the shelter of the Most High, rest in his shadow, and experience his protection as described in Psalm 91.